So what I'll do now is that I want to go over a few adab that, in fact, Nadia, she already read out a sheet which you all should have, but I also want to touch upon this topic. So basically, adab is the plural of adab, and that means that basically it's part of getting the inward knowledge, right? So it means like a proper comportment, like courtesy, humanities. I mean, there are different words that we can use, but there's not really. So basically, it's to put things in its proper place. That's what it's all about. That's why adib in Urdu, if you know what adib is, what adib does is from adab is that he puts the words in its proper place, right? He's expert in writing. So that's why he's called an adib. So a person of adab, he knows how to put things in its proper place, right? And adab is with Allah. Adab is with his messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And there is also adab with his creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. That whoever holds in honor the sha'air, the symbols of Allah, right? فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. It is because they have piety in their heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also desires from us that we put things in its proper adab. We have adab with Allah, right? We have adab with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have adab with the people. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in one of the hadiths that I was commanded to treat people according to their status. According to their status. And certainly the status of a teacher is definitely elevated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Teachers, I mean, we have just like for the last 1 hour or so, we have just seen that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has increased the status of a person of knowledge compared to a person who don't have the knowledge, right? So, but the thing is that the whole purpose of adab, as I said, is not that we want some people to become arrogant and some people to become humble. This is part of the training. This is part of getting the inward knowledge. And that's why, and first of all, it is the order of Allah, right? But at the same time, we should take it as our training ground. That's why we need to have a lot of adab in our classes, right? If we look into the sunnah of the Sahaba Karam radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, for example, I mean, the way that they were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was their teacher, right? When some of the stories, they said that they didn't even use to move their head when the Prophet ﷺ was speaking. So much so that birds could even come and sit on their head and not fly away. That was the adab, that was the respect that they were showing when they were in the classroom, right? And sometimes they didn't even use to ask questions out of the adab of the Prophet ﷺ, that they may ask some things and it might not be appropriate to ask at that time, or that and might not be appropriate words. And they used to say that we used to benefit from the people, from the travelers who used to come from far off distances to come and ask the Prophet. And they said when they used to ask questions, we used to get benefit out of their questions. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that questions should not be asked. What all I'm saying is it has to be at its proper place, right? It has to be in its proper words. Sayyidah Aisha radiyallahu anha, she said she used to praise the Ansari women. She used to say that blessed are the women of Ansar, that their shyness didn't use to stop them to ask questions to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the question and answer are part of learning, and we have to do that. There's no way that we can learn without asking questions, but there has to be a proper adab when we do that, right? So what I need to do now real quick is I need to read from a book, one small little chapter, which is called by Imam al-Zarnuji, which is one of the very, very famous scholars of early centuries, and it's his book called Ta'limul Muta'allim, Tariqa al-Ta'allum. So it is instruction to the students, and this is a book, and it's one of the chapter which says respecting knowledge and those who possess it. And I'll just read it, and inshallah also try to explain if there anything that I feel that needs explanation. It says that know that in the pursuit of knowledge, one does not acquire learning nor profit from it unless one holds knowledge in esteem and those who possess it. So one must esteem and venerate the teacher. It is said that he who attains knowledge does not do so except through respect, while he who fails in this goal does so only by ceasing to respect and venerate learning and its bearers. So basically what he's saying is that if you want to gain benefit out of your learning, you have to respect the people who are giving you this knowledge. He said, it is stated that respect is preferable to obedience. For you do not perceive a man becoming an unbeliever through his rebellion against Allah's revelation, but by his mocking of it and by discarding reverence for it. And we know it from like Allah subhanahu, there were people called mustahzi'een who were mocking the Prophet, a'udhu billah, and there were people who simply rejected, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never gave guidance to people who mocked the Prophet. And the people who rejected in the beginning, there came a time when they were given guidance, right? So he said that it's better, that respect is preferable to obedience if you have to choose between the two. He says that one aspect of venerating knowledge consists in holding the teacher in esteem. He said, Ali radiallahu anh ibn Abi Talib said that I am the slave of him who teaches me one letter of the alphabet. If he wishes, he may sell me. And if he so desires, he may set me free. And if he cares to, he may deploy me as a slave. This is Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, who was titled as Babul Ilm, who was the door of knowledge by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what he's saying. He's saying, I'm a slave of my teacher, who teaches even me one letter of the alphabet. Then the author writes, he says, he who teaches you one letter of what you need for your religious instruction, he is your father in religion. Our teacher, the Venerable Imam, he mentions his name, used to say, our elders stated that whoever wishes his son to become learned will have to cultivate traveling scholars. Esteem them, venerate them, as well as offer them remuneration. If in the case of such Aadab comportments one's son does not become learned, then one's grandson will. So he's saying is that if that one should teach his children to respect scholars. He says that if by respecting them, if this person, his son, will definitely gain knowledge. And he says that if somehow, for some reason, he does not become learned, then know that at least his grandson, somebody from his generations, will become an alim, just by respecting. He says, in venerating the teacher, avoid walking in front of him and sitting in his place. And do not begin speaking in his presence without his permission. And do not speak to any great extent before him without his permission. One should not ask him any question when he is weary. One should observe the correct time and refrain from knocking on his door, but have patience until the teacher comes out. In short, one should seek his approval, avoid his resentment, and obey his commands in those things which are not sinful in the eyes of God. For the Prophet ﷺ said, never should a created man be obeyed in rebellion against the Creator. So, if the teacher is not giving you anything that is against the hukam of Sharia, against Allah and His Messenger, then it should be obeyed. He says that revering the teacher includes respecting teacher's children and those related to him. And I'll just skip that. Basically, he's talking about the respect of the teacher. He says at some later part, he says, it is reported that the Caliph Harun al-Rashid sent his son to a learned man, al-Asma'i, to take up the study of grammar and adab. And he said one day the Caliph saw al-Asma'i, the teacher, purifying himself and washing his feet, while the son of the Caliph was pouring water over his feet. So the Caliph reprimanded al-Asma'i. The teacher, he's reprimanding, he's the Caliph, no. And his son was only pouring water over his feet and he was washing himself. And the Caliph said to the teacher, I sent my son to you to learn grammar and be instructed in adab. So why is it that you don't ask him to pour water with one hand and wash your foot with your other hand? Subhanallah. So this is the teaching of our predecessors, our pious people. He says one way of holding knowledge and esteem is through veneration of the Quran, of the book, the Quran. It then behooves the student not to pick up the book unless he is in state of ritual purity. So it has been told that Imam al-Hulwani said, I obtained my learning by means of veneration, for I never took up paper unless I was pure. So he's teaching adab here. He's saying that all the Quran, of course, you have to touch it with wudu and state of purity, right? But he's saying that even if you are like, say, coming in a classroom, you are holding your books that you are going to learn from. He said the adab is that you should even hold them in the state of wudu. You should also hold them in state of purity. It's adab of the knowledge, it's adab of the books. He says that Imam al-Sarakhsi had abdominal issues, and it was his wont to repeat the Quran at night, so he purified himself 17 times, each time after he had been compelled to relieve nature, in order not to resume recitation without being pure. Although he was a hafiz, he was reciting from his memory, but he didn't want to recite without being in state of wudu. Subhanallah. This was adab. He did this as learning is light and purification is light. Thus the light of learning is increased by purification. Subhanallah, beautiful statement. The required veneration of the book includes the obligation not to stretch out one's foot towards the book. This is adab, right? That one should not stretch his foot towards the adab. Just think about it. Like, for example, two people are sitting in front of each other, and one person, he stretches his foot out at his face. Just think of how he'll be feeling. So this is out of adab, right? So exactly, knowledge is light, the book is light. So we should not stretch out our feet towards the book or towards the qibla. And I'm going back to the book, and not to place anything else above the book. Our teacher Imam al-Burhanuddin often narrated that when a certain sheikh saw a scholar putting an inkwell on the book, like he said to him in Persian, that is, you will reap no fruit from your labors. So this is the adab that they're teaching. So the adab is basically to put for the Quran on the top. For example, there's a pile of books. You should put Quran on the top, and then the book of the hadith, and then the book of the fiqh, and then the other books. This is just out of adab, to respect, to give the preference for what should be given preference. Then this author says, it was our teacher known as Qadi Khan who used to say, if one does not break the rules for handling the Quran or intend to treat the book with disdain, there is no harm in so doing. But it is better to guard oneself against the possibility of such a breach of rules. The required veneration for the Quran includes a duty to write the book beautifully and not in a cramped style, and not to leave notes in the margin except when it cannot be helped. He says when Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala saw someone writing the book in a cramped style, he said, do not cramp your handwriting. If you live, you will regret it, and if you die, you will be taken to task. It is told that Imam Majd-ad-Din al-Sarakhsi stated, let us not write in a cramped style, lest we regret it. And let us not make the selections, that is the abridgments, lest we regret it. And let us not omit to collate when what we have written, lest we regret it. It says that veneration of learning includes venerations of one's companions in the quest of knowledge, that is your fellow students, and of one's fellow students during a lecture session. Adulation is blameworthy except in the quest of knowledge, for at times it becomes necessary to praise one's teacher and one's fellow students in order that one can profit from their learning. So this is very important. We should be very respectful not only to the teacher, but to our fellow students as well. He says, in seeking knowledge, it is essential to listen to words of knowledge and wisdom with reverence and veneration, even if one hears the same question and same words 1,000 times. That's what I said. These are all reminders. Sometimes we know a few things, sometimes we don't. And we should know that if we know, that the other person sitting next to me might not have known about that thing. So we should listen to that patiently. We should have all respect, and we should take it for our own sake. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ ذِكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That remind them, because reminder helps the believers. We tend to forget. So if we listen to something that we already know, just think about this ayah of the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to listen to this again. Because He wants me to be reminded again and again and again. Right? And the thing is that if we know it and we are not acting on it, then we certainly need to listen to it again in any way, right? He says that it is said that when one's respect for knowledge after hearing it 1,000 times is not equal to his respect the first time he heard it, he is not worthy of knowledge. So we should also know that are we respecting what we are hearing? And if our respect has decreased, or we did not respect it even once, then a'udhu billah, we can be deprived of that knowledge. So we should force ourselves to respect to what we are hearing. He says, in seeking knowledge, it is necessary that one not choose by himself the kind of learning to pursue, but to entrust the matter to the teacher. For indeed the teacher has gained more experience in these matters, such that he is more knowledgeable of what is needed for each person and what is suitable to the nature of each student. So see, as I mentioned, that this learning is of the outward knowledge and of the inward knowledge. So it may happen that at times the teacher may ask a few of you to do a few things. So you should take it by respect, because you should know that it is part of your inward learning as well, right? The teacher might ask you to sit at a certain place, for example, not to sit with one of your fellow students, or may ask you to do certain acts. So you should take it with adab, with respect, with resentment, with veneration. That we should respect all of that. It's part of this whole learning process. He says that Imam Burhanuddin used to say, in the quest of learning in early times, the students entrusted their affairs of learning to their teacher, and in this manner did they reach their goals and aims. But nowadays they make their own choices and fail to reach their objectives in religious and legal knowledge. It is related that Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari came to Muhammad ibn al-Hasan with the book of prayer. It was probably a law book. And Muhammad ibn al-Hasan said to him, go out and learn the science of tradition, that is the hadith. For he assessed that this field of knowledge was better suited to his nature. So Bukhari indeed studied the field of prophetic tradition and finally became superior to all the other imams of tradition. Subhanallah. Just by this, see, this is also the sunnah of Allah. He asked the Prophet ﷺ to ask for consultation of his Sahaba, right? So when there is a student-teacher relationship, the counsel that the teacher gives to the student, it has his blessings, it has his barakah. This is all iman. This is all part of our belief, that how much do we really know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands of us. And this is exactly the same. So this mashwara, this consultation, this looking out for what teacher is asking of you, it has its blessings, it has its barakah. And you will inshallah gain more knowledge this way than by choosing what you need to do on your own. He says that it further behooves the student not to sit too close to the teacher during a lecture except under necessity. In fact, it is important that the pupils sit in a semicircle at a certain distance from a teacher. Of course, it won't be possible here because there are too many students and the room is small, but I'm just reading what he's saying. He says this is more appropriate in showing due respect. And it is necessary in the quest of knowledge to be on one's guard from shameful traits of character, for they are howling dogs of the spirit. He said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, the angels do not enter a home in which there is a dog or a picture. So subhanallah, what he's saying, that if somebody does not have the character, it is like a dog. He says that Allah's mercy does not come into a house where there is a picture or a dog. He says, how can, if somebody is not showing a character, the right character, how can Allah's mercy descend on his heart? So this is basically this. Thinking about that, we should be very respecting to your teacher and your students, and also that also means there shouldn't be any argumentation in the class with your fellow students or with the teacher, right? There shouldn't be any backbiting. There shouldn't be backbiting of the other fellow students. There shouldn't be any backbiting of your teacher when she is away, right? For example, it may happen that you will be tested on certain things, and somebody will get more marks than the other person. So you should not be talking to your fellow student, but she didn't do justice with me. I should have gotten more numbers here. The best thing is that you show with due respect and with due the ways that are appropriate. You should go back to the teacher and you should ask her that how should I improve, rather than coming back and saying you should have given me more. Number is not about number. It's not a number game here, right? It's not about who gets more marks. There might be people here in the class who are struggling the most, right? and who are getting the least number of least marks in their test, but in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they might be the most respected in the sight of Allah, and these are the people who we should be looking for. It's not about numbers and marks and all about that, right? So we should know that. And to end this chapter, this author says that it is said knowledge is hostile to the haughty youth, just as torrential rain is hostile to the highlands. He said, it is also said, all glory is attained by exertion, not by luck. So that means that you have to work hard. It doesn't mean that you sleep one night and you assume that everything will go into your brain and your heart. He says that is luck without exertion of any glory? How many a slave ranks with the free, and how many a freeborn ranks with the slave? Subhanallah. So this is not a party. We should know that. We are coming to a circle of remembrance of Allah, which is surrounded by the angels, right? So we should be very respectful in this gathering. We can go out and chat and laugh. I mean, it's not, of course, disallowed, but we should be very respectful when we come to these circles. Should respect the gathering, right? And one thing that I want to tell you is that trust your teacher. You know, there's no relationship without trust. Just think about it. I mean, think about a relationship between a husband and a wife. If there's no trust between a husband and a wife, there's no life, right? There's no relationship. So the trust is the thing that holds that relationship. So that there should be a complete trust in your teacher. And I'm assuming that the reason that you have enrolled into this course is that you trust the teacher. So once you trust the teacher, then you just assume that whatever she is telling or he is telling is the right thing. And if you have any doubts, you should ask them with respect. So this is how the mode of learning should be, right? Never feel offensive. Never feel offensive. If anything, the teacher should be more mindful and more knowledgeable of what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam demands of them. They should be. And I mean, of course, they're not perfect, but at the same time, I mean, this is what they should also come up with. They should know what are their duties. I mean, the students of learning, as I said in the hadith of Abu Darda, they are so respected that the angels put their wings under their feet, right? So we as teachers know that how respectful are all of you. You are very, very respected in our eyes. So if any of the teachers says you anything that you feel that is disrespectful, it might be that it is to train you inwardly, right? It might be that you feel some things that are offensive, but it's just to kill the nafs sometimes, right? Because to teach humility. So never feel that teacher hates you or teacher disrespects you. It can never happen. And if it does happen, then the teacher has to go back and ask for Allah for forgiveness, right? So one thing that if I need to tell you is that leave your ego. Just submit yourself. If there is one way to learn, that is through submission. There is no other way around. We have to be humble in order to learn. We have to really, there will come time for sure, because our nafs is with us, right? Our nafs wants that it should set free. It should be set free. It should do whatever it wants, right? It should look at whatever it wants to look at. It should listen to whatever it wants to hear, listen to. It should go out wherever it wants to go to. This is what our nafs is like. But the thing is, this inward knowledge that we have been talking about, along with the outward knowledge, is about training our nafs. It's about learning taqwa. It's about learning humility. It's about learning what pleases Allah and what displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of this comes by submitting ourselves, to kill our nafs sometimes, to leave your ego. And once you show adab to your teacher, you know what? It automatically attracts the respect of the teacher towards yourself, and their love and their du'as. This is by default. It's very natural. And you know what? In the Sahaba Karam radiyallahu anhum majma'een, they were so respectful. They were so they had so much adab of the Prophet, and they were so much kind of competing with each other in order to gain excellence. that Prophet ﷺ used to make dua for them. There were 3 Abdullahs, which are Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Abbas, and Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu ajma'in. And Prophet ﷺ, just because of them showing adab and just because of them competing positively to increase in their obedience to Allah, Prophet ﷺ used to make special dua for them in tahajjud. And one of them, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, became the master of fiqh. Abdullah ibn Abbas became master of tafsir. Abdullah ibn Umar became master of hadith. Subhanallah. Just because of the du'as of the Prophet. So once you show more adab, then the teacher will automatically get attracted towards you and they make dua for you. And I mean, of course, they make dua for everybody. And one is to ask for dua, that you ask somebody, please make dua for me. And one is that you kind of get it yourself. And that getting yourself is by showing respect to other people. Right? And the last thing that I want to say, don't be afraid. So please enjoy the course. It is nothing, nobody will be left behind, inshallah. Even if, as I said, the people who will be struggling the most, inshallah, will be getting the highest reward. So never feel bad about it. Inshallah, you will be given all the help that you will be requiring. So inshallah, be consistent, have the istiqamah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people of who are consistent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ. That those people who say that our Lord is Allah and they remain consistent on that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down angels and they give them glad tidings that don't be afraid, don't feel sad, and they give them glad tidings of paradise. So this is the reward of being consistent. So be consistent. Never feel, if you are feeling down, talk to your teacher, and inshallah she will be able to help you out. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of you, accept your intention, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of you, and you'll be able to not only learn it, but be able to implement in your lives, and not only that, you'll be able to teach your children, your generations to come. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.